We have had Fleet Week here in San Francisco for a quarter of a century. It's always been fun, interesting. But about 3 or 4 years ago, General Myatt took over the leadership of this Fleet Week. He recruited Dianne Feinstein and me to be the co-chairman, and we quickly learned that that was a role that didn't demand anything because Mike ran it. And he transformed Fleet Week. The ships were there and we had all the fun and everything, but into a training exercise for all of us. The first responders in the Bay Area, military people, to see what we would do here in San Francisco Bay, not just the city of San Francisco, the whole Bay Area was involved, in the case of some catastrophe, an earthquake or something. And I think it's fair to say that the military people felt they learned something from the first responders about what firemen and policemen and so on do. But the capacity of military people to help in that was just blew everybody away with the things that could be brought. And we practiced and exercised and we had wonderful sessions. And Mike is seeing to it that Fleet Week doesn't die and the training exercise doesn't die. And we'll continue to talk about these issues and learn from them.
He has founded and runs military field hospital on the border between Israel and Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Colonel Dr. Salman Zarka.
I would like to take the time that I have to tell you about the humanitarian medical aid that is provided by the State of Israel to Syrian citizens that were injured in the Syrian civilian war. I used to be the medical command of the the medical commander of the Northern Command at Israel, and in this position I have to deal with medicine, with medical assessment for soldiers and for Israeli persons, especially during wartime, especially to deal with Hezbollah attacks from Lebanon or attacks from Syria. I never thought that one day I will plan and provide medical aid to Syrian civilians as the commander of the military field hospital at the Israeli-Syrian border. As you probably know, between Israel and Syria, there is a war relation ever since Israel was established. For the last 2 years, more than 2 years, there was an uprising against the government and demand for change. This is a great rebellion that had hundreds of thousands injured and thousands killed. The State of Israel has decided not to participate in this conflict and reinforce its forces in the Golan Heights on the border. Some of the Syrian civilians that were injured turned to the assistance of Jordan and Turkey, but some, unfortunately, remain untreated. Just the February 16, something happened. 7 Syrians injured in a severe medical condition came close to the border. The military medical forces staying in the Golan Heights were called to the wounded and treated them quickly and professionally, took them to civilian hospitals in the north, a distance of an hour. All this led to a decision: construction of a military hospital in the Golan Heights to provide humanitarian medical aid to Syrian civilians. Now we had a humanitarian operation consist of 3 components: Role 1 on the border, Role 2 on the military field hospital, and Role 3 at the Israeli civilian hospitals. The medical staff included 20 officers from different military medical professions such as surgeons, anesthetists, orthopedics, nurses, X-ray laboratory personnel, medical equipment, and logistics. The staff needed to provide medical care to battle-flight injuries that include surgical injuries, orthopedics injury, ICU, and hospital beds. Yesterday, our hospital was bombarded by Syrian mortars. The staff ran with the wounded to a shelter. Unfortunately, 2 soldiers from around yesterday were hurt from this bombing. This mission is the fact that we are trying hostile countries' population, and we know almost nothing about the wounded identity. As I mentioned before, between Israel and Syria, there is a war relationship for many decades. I can tell you that in one event, we found a hand grenade in one bucket of one patient. We have treated about 500 injuries. About 140 of them were evacuated to civilian hospitals in the north of Israel. 250 were evacuated to the field hospitals in the Golan Heights. Whenever the treatment can be given on the border without need for evacuation, it was done. This was the case in 23 cases. There are a few differences that I would like to emphasize. This humanitarian aid is inside Israel, is on the border, and not overseas, which allows us to receive equipment, supply, expert manpower, and the medical backup available for any case we think needed. The second thing is that the medical staff and the injured are in the threatened area. What I told you before about yesterday, always we need to evaluate their protection and take the patient and the staff to safety place when needed. The third thing that is important is that we give humanitarian assistance to an enemy country. It's something different. This is our first experience in this kind of task. My crew has proven that the ethics of the medical profession, the ethics of medical staff, and the desire to save lives and assist patients are stronger than them being our enemy. To finish, I would like to say that my crew and I feel very lucky. We have earned the opportunity to give humanitarian assistance to the civilians of Syria in their time of need. I believe, as a physician, that medicine can bring hearts together and can change the world. Maybe one day I can bring all of these treated at the hospital together with the staff to see them all healthy. Thank you very much.
Do all the wounded Syrians, are they repatriated back to Syria when they've healed?
All the Syrian wounded that get into Israel are asked to leave. All of them, I know, after they finish their treatment, get back to Syria. If they stay at Syria, leave to Jordan or other place, I don't know. This is what I said at the end. I want to hope that one day things will change, will be peace, and we can gather all of them to be sure that they are healthy.
They want to question the Islamic militants' growing strength in what they call the Free Syrian Army. If they take over, will they become a threat to Israel and Jordan? And what is Israel to do about these threats?
Two parts for my answer. The first part, every wounded that get in my hospital are not asked about his identity. Every wounded that get in my hospital are not asked about his religion. I think Israel is concerned about what is happening at Syria. But the state of Israel has decided not to do things with that, not to take part with this conflict. I think there is a mess in Syria. I'm not sure that we know which part is with the Islamic, with the dangerous Islamic, and which part is the other. I'm not familiar with this thing. I'm trying to do my best with medical issues.
I think that was a great answer. Thank you so much.